Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of CS Cyber. I'm Chad.
I'm Sean.
And today we're continuing our NIST 800-171 series, and we're talking about system and communication protections. So just to kind of kick this off, right? So system and communication protection is really all about safeguards to protect data in transit, prevent unauthorized access, and secure information sharing mechanisms.
Sounds like a lot of encryption.
It's a lot of encryption. So this is kind of a heavy one, right? So this control family, I think it has, let me just scroll down here, 16 sub-controls.
Whoa.
Yeah, so it's a lot. So you're going to want to read through those. Actually, we should probably just cover a couple of those when we get to that section.
Okay.
But it really consists of controls designed to establish security measures that protect system communications, including encryption, session control, and boundary defenses. So all of this is, as your data is moving around your environment or leaving your environment, how are you protecting that as it goes, right?
Yep.
So just want to hit a couple key requirements. You got to establish secure communication channels for this, right? So ensure encryption is used for data transmission. I think that's inherently, at least what I've seen with platforms, especially SaaS applications, there is encryption on the way out. Everything's kind of communicating over HTTPS. Internally, though, what do you think about that?
So I think that's an Office 365 question. So if you're on the O365 platform, email server to email server, I know there was a lot of, talk back in the day about them not being encrypted, connection to connection. And I think that's there now.
Yeah.
As well as like O365 and OneDrive and, data at rest with the OneDrive being at rest. So I think a lot of that is covered inside the SaaS application, to your point.
Right. And I don't see that as much as I used to, right? I mean, I think just about everything now is traversing HTTPS and things like that. So protect system boundaries. You want to implement firewalls and intrusion detection mechanisms.
And implement all those things correctly.
And implement, yeah. Just don't put them in line and hope that they're doing something. You really need to configure those and make sure that all the time. We come across it all the time, actually. Prevent unauthorized disclosure through public communication systems. Ensure cryptographic safeguards are in place. So you want to use the appropriate cryptographic methods to protect sensitive data.
And I can give an example of like when I was working on the CGIS projects, the FIPS 140-2 and 3.
You have a really good story on this, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So there's a lot of this is where it really starts to suck, right? So if you really follow the standard, especially from a CUI perspective with 171, you have to, basically from a firewall perspective, needs to be FIPS 140-2 and -3 compliant. The problem with that is that it takes years to certify a version of a firewall for a certain FIPS standard.
Right.
Well, in between that time, there becomes this giant gap of vulnerabilities. So you have to really decide, do you want to be FIPS compliant or would you like to have a secure firewall?
Yeah, I think this is really interesting, right? Because this is where compliance meets real life, right? So do you want to go by the letter of the law and flip that on and then just stay there? Or
I don't know, man. I got into it with an auditor about that and finally won when I finally said, do you want the FIPS compliance or do you want your client to have a secure firewall? And they agreed that the compensating control was to install the patches.
And disable and...
Yeah, avoid the FIPS thing. But that's a dialogue, right? That's dialogue that you have to have with your auditor.
Yeah, and that I think that's an important aspect, right, that we really haven't talked about. So if you are going through an audit, it's important to have that dialogue with auditors, right? I think a lot of people are under the impression, if they're going through an audit, that these auditors are just going to show up, go through what you have, and either you're going to pass or fail. I think
that's not the case.
Yeah, at least my experience, I think our experience is the auditors are going to work with you and kind of help you along these paths, right? I mean, it's not just a one and done, but having conversations like that can really kind of talk them through where you are and what you're trying to accomplish. So
yeah, I've been through a lot of audits, man. I've had FBI agents, I've had state troopers, I've had just about all of it, right? And almost all of them were interested in having a real world conversation at the end of the day. Yeah. You just have to be articulate about it.
Right. Yeah. All right, so let's just kind of hop into some of
Yeah.
the sub controls. Like I said, there's 16, so you're going to want to read through all of those.
I think we should read all of them. No, I'm just kidding.
There was a couple I wanted to highlight, right? So separate user functionality from system management functionality. I see that. I think of that in terms of like accounts, right? I mean, I see so many times where people have one account and they're using that to administer the domain and check their email. Let's separate those out, have an admin account for things, and then use that sparingly, not as your everyday work account. What else was I going to do? Oh, terminate network connections after a defined period of inactivity.
Yeah.
When you remote to a server and you just stay there for...
You mean leave remote desktop open all day?
Yeah, just for, and not just today, just for the next 30 days until hopefully the system is patched and rebooted and your connection is no longer there. Make sure, this is especially impactful in VMware environments where people are going to like a VMware console and then not basically a terminal, but like logging in just directly, like as if you're at the console, right? So then any other user that comes to the VMware console can pop open that server and now they're logged on as you.
Yep.
So just closing those remote sessions are really important. It's something that I think everybody kind of knows, but it's hard for administrators as they're trying to fix something and now they're trying to fix something else and they're going back and forth all day.
Agreed.
Prevent unauthorized exfiltration of data using boundary protections, right? So that's the DLP policies on your firewall, right? You want to be implementing those. Is there anything else on here specifically that you wanted to call out?
No, I don't think so.
The last one I did, securely configure network devices and enforce secure configurations. That's important, making sure your firewalls, your switches not only have a secure configuration and that they are appropriately configured, but that it's repeatable, right? So every time you deploy a new switch or something like that, you're not starting from scratch and trying to figure out like the policies, right? So having a process to do that would be ideal. Just kind of talking about some practical examples of system and communication protections. You got VPNs, you got email encryption tools, web filtering, HTTPS encryption protocols, SFTP, IDS, IPS would fall under this as well.
Yep. And just intrusion detection and intrusion prevention. So the difference, IDS meaning it's just going to detect it but not do anything, and PS being the preventative piece, like it's going to take action.
Right. And what could that be? That could be isolating it, quarantine it, dropping the packets.
Yeah, it could be all that.
Right.
And typically what we see is just quarantine.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just some implementation best practices. We talked about encryption at rest. You want to enforce end-to-end encryption for all communication and data in transit. We talk about this a lot. Just regular security audits to make sure that what you have in place is actually protecting at a level that you're expecting it to work, right? So just that constant review to identify vulnerabilities, system updates, software updates, things like that. A big one in communication was like the TLS stuff, right? I mean, the TLS, it deprecates, you need to actually disable that and move on.
Correct.
So just a couple products, we wanted to highlight. The TLS is on here. Microsoft BitLocker is a good one for endpoints, encryption at rest. There's a lot in this space, I think.
Yeah, there's a lot of tools out there. There's, you've got a lot of commercial encryption solutions out there. And then there's, full-scale security suites out there like Fortinet's advanced security stuff. I think that's in the SASE world. Security as a service, something. I don't know what it stands for. I don't remember. It's basically like modern mainframes.
Secure Edge, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, Secure Edge, yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of products out there, and you got to do your homework. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Or partner with somebody like Secure Cyber.
Yeah. Just a couple policies I want to hit on. You'll need an encryption policy, network security policy is really required for CMMC and NIST compliance. Remote access policy be a good one to have. Talk about VPNs, MFA usage, things like that in that policy. Just some common challenges. So ensuring communications across third parties and vendors, right? So a lot of times on the back end of that cloud provider, you're hoping for the best. I'd say you really need to dig in there and make sure that they're SOC compliant, or that they are willing to talk to you about their back end infrastructure and how that works.
Yeah, there's I think one of the most common cases with this is all those those AWS like S3 buckets and stuff like that. There's a lot of unsecured cloud containers out there that third parties are using. And you really need to dig into it and find out where your data is sitting.
Yeah. And I think just kind of balancing security with performance, right? I think we saw this kind of earlier on when encryption at rest and things like that were kind of new on the scene. Typically, I don't see too much of a performance hit when we're talking about like disk encryption or encryption, like
right
in the data stream at this point anymore.
Right. I agree.
So, but yeah, I think that's really kind of the gist of this one.
Yeah, I think the key here too is to get an assessment, like find out where you are and regularly assess. So if there's anything that we see, across all these standards, it's that low. Like they just keep talking about regular risk assessments, regular auditing. So it's not a one and done type thing.
Right. And I think that's difficult for IT shops to get their head around, especially when they're small and they're trying to do everything, right? So I would say really look for someone that you can partner with that can either help you do like ongoing assessments or can at least follow up with you to kind of keep this on your radar and discuss these things with you.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
All right. So that's all we got for this episode. Next week, we'll be talking about system and information integrity.
Okay.
And that'll be the last actual framework or control set for this. Then we'll kind of do a wrap up, and I think we'll be talking about something different here in a couple weeks.
All right. Sounds good. Well, we'll see you then.
Thanks.